Everyone has a line for what counts as cheating. The funny thing is, that line often moves, depending on what we've already allowed ourselves to do. We like to talk about cheating like it's a switch, faithful or unfaithful, loyal or disloyal. But for a lot of people, it doesn't happen like that. It happens gradually, one small choice that feels harmless, then another one, then another. And one day, you look up and realize you're somewhere you once swore you'd never be. So this is how that usually happens, how it starts, how it grows, how people explain it to themselves, and why the people who say, "I'd never," are sometimes more vulnerable than they think. Quick exercise. Think about the last person who wasn't your partner that you texted something you probably wouldn't have texted if your partner were reading over your shoulder. Maybe it was nothing. A reply that went a little longer than it needed to. A compliment with one extra sentence attached. You saved their Instagram story, you noticed what they were wearing. You typed something, deleted it, then typed something safer instead. Technically, none of that is cheating, obviously. But when you ask people where the line is, they usually give very confident answers. And those answers often land just past whatever they personally have already done. The person who flirts says flirting is fine. The person who crossed a physical line says it only counts if there are feelings. The person in an emotional affair says feelings aren't a choice. Somehow, every definition protects the person giving it. There's a wide range here, from a harmless crush to a full affair. Most people are somewhere on it, probably closer to the harmless end. The uncomfortable part is being honest about where you are. So the real question is this: how do people move further than they meant to while still feeling like they're in control? What makes the slide begin? Attraction is rarely the first thing. Usually it starts with something much quieter. The most dangerous thing that can happen to a relationship is a Tuesday. A completely fine, predictable, unremarkable Tuesday, followed by another one and another one. People think cheating comes from unhappiness, and sometimes it does, but a lot of the time it starts with boredom. Boredom is harder to talk about than unhappiness because it sounds cruel. You can't sit across from someone who loves you and say, "I'm leaving because nothing is really wrong." That sentence doesn't hold up, so people stay and the boredom just sits there, quiet and easy to ignore, until something new shows up and the contrast feels enormous. Social media makes this worse in a subtle way. It shows you other people being exciting. You're comparing the inside of your relationship, the sweatpants, the same dinner rotation, the silence, to the outside of everyone else's. And the outside usually wins, because it's designed to. Meanwhile, needs go unspoken. Small things. I wish you asked me about my day. I miss when we actually laugh together. Nobody sits down and catalogs these feelings. They just build. Resentment doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just makes you slightly more available when someone else pays attention. That's all it has to do. Sometimes the relationship isn't terrible at all. It just starts to feel still. And when things feel still for long enough, novelty can feel more powerful than it actually is. Nobody wakes up and decides to have an affair. Usually the decision happens as dozens of smaller decisions, each one easy to defend on its own. That's what makes this hard to talk about honestly. It starts with a conversation, maybe a coworker, maybe an old friend who resurfaced online, maybe someone from a group chat or a gym. The context almost doesn't matter. What matters is that they're new and they're paying attention, and your partner, through no great fault of their own, has become familiar. The first few exchanges are genuinely nothing. A meme, a reaction to someone's story, a comment that's a little warmer than necessary. Then the conversation moves from public to private, from casual to personal, so smoothly you barely register the shift. After a while, a personal detail gets shared, something real, maybe a frustration with work, maybe something about the relationship. That's the first tiny door. The detail itself may not even matter. The sharing does. Now this person knows something your partner doesn't, and that small gap creates a space. Inside, jokes develop. Memes get sent that only means something to the two of you. There's a shorthand now, a private language. This is what safe flirting often looks like. Plausible deniability built into every line. If someone asked about your day, you might mention this person. You just wouldn't mention how often you think about them or that you checked their profile twice today. I didn't mean for this to happen, people say, like it's a confession. But sometimes it's just a description. They really didn't mean for it to happen. They just didn't stop it either. And at a certain point, choosing to let something continue becomes a choice of its own. Most people assume physical cheating is worse. It's the dramatic betrayal, the one with a clear event, a clear line, a clear moment you can point to and say, that's when it happened. They assume that until they've lived through the other kind. Talk to someone who found out their partner had been emotionally close to another person for months. No sleeping together, no physical contact at all. Just talking. And for a lot of people, that hurts more. Physical cheating, strangely, can be easier to understand because there's a moment. There's a fact. You can rage at the fact, categorize it as a terrible mistake, and decide what to do with it. Emotional cheating doesn't have one clean moment. It has a timeline, and somewhere on that timeline, your partner started choosing someone else as their person. For months, maybe longer. The defense is usually the same. I never slept with them. And the person hearing that rarely finds it comforting, because what they're actually hearing is, you gave someone else the version of you I thought was mine. The late-night honesty, the vulnerability, the feeling of being understood, that was ours, and you gave it away. For some people, emotional intimacy is the whole relationship. When it goes somewhere else, what's left can feel like a roommate situation with shared furniture. Nobody cheats while believing they're a bad person. From the inside, there's always a story, and the story always makes sense. It usually starts with a real feeling, I'm not happy. That feeling might be true. The problem is what happens next, because I'm not happy can be the start of an honest conversation with your partner, or it can become the start of a justification script. The script goes like this: I'm not happy. I've tried to be. They don't see me. I deserve to feel wanted. Maybe this new person is what I was supposed to find. Maybe I stayed too long out of obligation. Each step feels like a discovery, like you're finally being honest with yourself. But sometimes what's really happening is that you're building a legal case, collecting only the evidence that supports the conclusion you already want. Then there's the ego part. Less romantic, more embarrassing, but real. Sometimes cheating is mostly about proof. Proof that you're still attractive, that someone still wants you. Sometimes the affair itself matters less than the validation it gives them. Then there's the destiny angle. I didn't choose this, it chose me. Soulmate language gets used like a legal defense. It overrides promises because the promises were made to one version of life, and this new situation feels different. Destiny is a great lawyer. The strange part is the double standard. The same person caught up in their own justification can hear about someone else cheating and say, I could never respect someone who does that. In their version, what they're doing is more complicated. Funny how it's always more complicated when it's you. There's a pattern that shows up before many affairs. The order can change, but it often starts with the complaint. One person vents about their relationship. They feel unseen. They share something they may not have shared at home. It feels like friendship, but it may be the first real disclosure of vulnerability to someone outside the relationship. Then comes the mirror. The other person reflects it back. Honestly, same. I know exactly what you mean. Now, there's a shared experience, a shared frustration. The word we starts showing up, casually at first. We both get it. We're both going through something. Then comes the comparison. This is where it shifts. Someone says, or implies, you understand me better than they do. Maybe it's less direct. I can actually talk to you. Or, this is the most honest conversation I've had in months. Now the outside person is being measured against the partner, and they're winning because they're new. Then comes the admission. Something gets said that can't quite be taken back. Honest in a way both people can feel. I think about you a lot. Or, I look forward to these conversations more than I should. Want to level up your people skills? Join our community on YouTube or on my Patreon for exclusive scripts, early access, and connection with people who get the social struggle. Links below. Let's master human interaction together. Sometimes the final shift isn't a conversation at all. It's a silence, a pause after something almost gets said, a door that stays open a second too long, a night that didn't have to end the way it did, but nobody stopped it. The decision gets made by what neither person says. So the line is crossed, and now the strange part starts. Because the person who crossed it still has to go home, still has to be a partner, maybe a parent, definitely a coworker, still has to show up to Sunday dinners and reply to texts and act like the person they were last month. Compartmentalization takes over here. Your brain already does this when you have a stressful work problem and still manage to enjoy dinner. You put things in separate mental folders. One folder for work, one folder for home, one folder for the thing you're choosing not to think about right now. As long as the folders don't touch, neither one feels fully contaminated by the other. Someone can be a genuinely loving partner at 7 p.m. and send a text to someone else at 10 p.m. and experience both as real and separate. Guilt is there. It just lives in a folder too. Cover stories start simple. I'm working late. Drinks with the team. But they require maintenance. One lie needs a supporting lie. The supporting lie needs a detail that matches a timeline. The whole thing gets heavier every week. Sometimes friends get pulled in. If anyone asks, I was with you. That sentence turns a friendship into an accessory, and it can change the friend group long after the affair ends. The part people don't expect is that the secrecy itself can become exciting. The hidden phone, the deleted messages, the thrill of maintaining something invisible. That excitement can get confused with real connection. People think they're in love. Sometimes they're just riding adrenaline. Remember the good morning text from earlier? The person sending it is now sending two of them. Different contacts, maybe similar words, filed in completely different places in their head. That's what the brain does when it's managing a contradiction it doesn't want to resolve. And eventually, most of these situations start to crack. Before we talk about how it falls apart, there's one uncomfortable thing worth naming. You're watching a video about cheating, and so are a lot of other people. The algorithm noticed there's an entire industry built around cheating content. Catching cheaters channels, loyalty tests, real cheating stories narrated over gameplay footage. The whole ecosystem runs on one emotion, the satisfaction of watching someone get caught. Some of it is real, a lot of it is staged, and the line is getting harder to find. But the emotional payoff is the same, so most people don't check. Over time, that changes what you expect from people. You watch a few cheating videos, the algorithm gives you more. Your feed becomes a feed about betrayal, and your baseline assumptions about relationships start to shift. You start seeing signs everywhere. Your partner takes too long to reply and something tightens in your chest that wasn't there 6 months ago. You're watching a video about cheating right now. I made it, you clicked on it, and we're both inside that system. I'm not going to pretend that's neutral. The content you consume shapes what you expect from people. And if all you consume is betrayal, you start expecting betrayal. Anyway, back to the story. Because when cheating gets discovered, it's usually not dramatic at first. It's a notification on an unlocked phone while someone's in the bathroom, a name mentioned casually for the third time in a week. A receipt from a restaurant in a part of town your partner had no reason to be in. Small, stupid stuff. That's what does it. The first response is often a lie. That's nobody. You're reading into it. We're just friends. The lie comes out before the cheater has even fully decided to lie. A reflex born from months of compartmentalization. The folder labeled secret has its own defense system. Then damage control kicks in, minimizing, reframing, the greatest hits. It was just texting. It only happened once. It didn't mean anything. It's not what it looks like. Technically. There's that word again, doing the same heavy lifting it was doing at the beginning. Some cheaters start showing signs before they're caught. The guilt leaks out sideways. Sudden gifts for no reason, unusual attentiveness, compliments that feel like they're coming from a script. Sometimes the partner thinks, oh, they're making an effort. Sometimes they think, something is off. The thing designed to hide the affair becomes the thing that reveals it. Some people confess before they're caught. Guilt builds until the compartments can't hold it. Others never confess. A year goes by, 10. They take it with them and build a life on top of it, deciding that silence is a form of mercy. Whether that's true is a question I genuinely don't have an answer to. And then there's the person on the other side, the one who discovers it. That strange, hollow feeling of being right about the thing you desperately wanted to be wrong about. That's a kind of loneliness nobody prepares you for. There are 3 people in many cheating stories, and we usually focus on 2, the cheater and the partner. The third person gets reduced to a villain, but they were inside a story too. They were told the relationship was basically over, or that leaving was just a matter of timing. Sometimes these are half-truths. Sometimes they're lies the cheater genuinely believes. Either way, they create a picture, and the other person steps into that picture and builds their hope around it. The promises come next. I'm going to tell them this weekend. Just give me until after the holidays. By summer, I'll be out. These weekends pass. The holidays pass, summer passes, and the other person is still there, waiting, in a relationship that technically doesn't exist, for a future that keeps getting pushed back. They read every social media post like a cipher. A photo with the partner? Is that new or old? A private story they weren't added to? They become an expert in subtext and an amateur in self-deception. The alternative is admitting that the story they were told was designed to be believed, and that believing it was the whole point. What finally ends it is rarely one clean decision. It's exhaustion. The waiting costs more than the hoping returns. And by the time it's over, the other person may have lost months, sometimes years, to a relationship that existed in the margins of someone else's real life. They're usually someone who got handed a story and tried to live inside it. The story was always someone else's. The first day after discovering cheating can feel like trying to remember how to breathe in a room where all the furniture has been moved. Everything looks the same. The apartment, the photos, the coffee mug they used this morning. None of it means what it meant yesterday. The facts haven't changed. The story they belong to has. Emotional waves arrive out of order. Shock first, usually, a flatness that feels like calm. Then grief, which surprises people, because you're grieving someone who's still alive, still standing in your kitchen, still saying your name. Then anger, which can feel better than grief, so people sometimes stay in it longer than they expected. Then the worst one, the strange pockets of normalcy. You laugh at something on TV and then catch yourself, and for a second laughing feels like a betrayal of the thing you now know. The ripple effects go further than people expect. Friends take sides, family dinners get rearranged, future relationships carry this as cargo, whether you want them to or not. The cheater processes the aftermath differently. The story gets revised. Slowly, over months, I made a terrible mistake, can become, we were both unhappy. And then it was more complicated than anyone knows. The villain gets softened in the retelling. The brain has a hard time sustaining the role of bad guy in its own story for that long. Some people try public exposure, the group chat blast, the social media post, the receipts. It can feel like justice in the moment, but it rarely delivers closure. Closure is something you build slowly. Years later, something small can trigger a memory so specific it stops you in the middle of a grocery store. Staying together after cheating can work. It can also be the worst decision you ever make. The difference often comes down to one thing, whether the cheater understands what they broke or only understands that they got caught. People who genuinely rebuild tend to show it behaviorally: transparency, patience, and a willingness to answer the same painful question without getting defensive. Anyone can say, "I'll do whatever it takes." Fewer people can tolerate what that actually means. Then there are serial cheaters, and this distinction matters. A one-time cheater with real remorse, real understanding of the pattern, and real changes in behavior. That's one situation. Someone who has done this before is a different situation entirely. Serial cheaters often compartmentalize faster, justify more efficiently, and return to the behavior when the same conditions show up again. Attachment styles can play a role here too, at least from what researchers can tell. Anxious attachers may stay because abandonment feels worse than betrayal. Avoidant attachers may leave because vulnerability feels too dangerous. Secure attachers can struggle too, because betrayal contradicts their basic model of how relationships work. Then there's the limbo. "I don't know what I want." That phrase can keep 3 people stuck for months. The cheater won't commit to staying or leaving. The partner can't heal because there's nothing stable to heal from yet. And the other person, if they're still around, is frozen too. What people usually change afterward, whether they stay or go, is their tolerance for silence. The couples who survive start talking about things they had been swallowing for years. The individuals who leave often start asking for what they need much earlier in the next relationship. Both of these can be growth. Neither of them is free. So if you strip it down, cheating usually needs 3 things: opportunity, secrecy, and dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction without opportunity is usually just unhappiness. Opportunity without dissatisfaction is usually just temptation. And without secrecy, the whole thing has a much harder time surviving reality. Go back to where we started. Everyone draws a line somewhere. The person who saves the story. The person who lingers on a DM. The person who has drawn their personal line just past what they've already done. That's not a monster thing. That's a human thing. We're wired for attention and novelty, and we live in a world that gives both to us in unlimited amounts. The pattern can usually be interrupted once you notice it. The complaint, the mirror, the comparison, the admission, the silence. These stages aren't magic. They're just moments where someone could tell the truth earlier. It usually isn't interrupted through surveillance or constant suspicion. It starts with something simpler and harder: honesty before the crisis. Understanding how cheating happens doesn't excuse the choices made inside it. People still choose. Every step was still a step someone took. But understanding the pattern makes it easier to see where the choices were. And once you can see them, you have a better chance of making a different one. You probably know someone near that line right now. You might be near it yourself. You don't have to treat that as a judgment. You can treat it as information. What you do next is the part that matters. Learn something new? Hit that like button, share it with others, tap subscribe, and stick around for more. Got thoughts? I'd love to hear them in the comments.